Welcome to the Dare to Dream podcast, Eric. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
We are going to have some fun today. And I think where I want to start is you mentioned to me the other day when I saw you that your son, Tyler, who's 13, went to a pretty interesting kids camp. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can, yeah. Well, the camp is led by the founder of the Spartan race, Joe DeSena.
Yes.
He knows a family friend. He's a family friend of my son's best friend. So their parents were pretty adamant about sending him to this camp because they know Joe. I knew a little bit about Spartan race, but nothing about what this camp was. And yeah, it's pretty intense. So because Tyler's buddy was interested in going, he was all about it, which we were surprised because we gave him the choice. But if I was summarizing what the camp is, it's basically a resilience camp. So you send these kids. Him and his buddy went on a flight to Boston, had to make a connection, then went through Chicago, then to Boston by themselves at 13. Then they take a 2-hour car with the driver. They get thrown in this camp, phones taken away, and then you don't hear from them for 8 days. So what we knew was that they're basically going to test them physically and mentally. What we found out was it's like a boot camp. So you get up at 4:45 in the morning. You get thrown into 65 other kids between the ages of 8 and 12 that you don't know. And then they're pushing you beyond your boundaries just to teach you that you can do more than you think you can. So, yeah, I mean, what we really appreciated about the experience with Tyler is that he came back feeling like he was proud of himself that he did it, but he also didn't want to do it again. So yeah. I think that was probably the best compliment you can get. So I mean, I can go into detail. I mean, these kids are cold plunging at 6 a.m. in their clothes to carrying logs up hills. I mean, all the things you think in a Spartan race. But they're doing it with kids they don't know, and they're doing it in an environment where the parents aren't there and they can't access the kids. So one of the cool things about Joe's just philosophy is teach kids at an age where they're impressionable that they're tougher than they think that they are, and that they can do harder things than they're getting in the normal suburban environment. Now, not all these kids are from suburban areas, but a lot of them are. I mean, obviously my kid is. And you just can't teach resilience through talking to your kids. And so I was all about it because I just, that's kind of my mindset personally. But I'm the dad too, so I'm a little bit less protective. But fortunately, my wife Gina is all about that stuff too. So she did her homework and we looked into it. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. We've been talking to our 10-year-old daughter about it now, and she's super nervous. She doesn't want to do it, but she's probably not going to have that choice. But yeah, I mean, I think anything with raising kids, especially at these formidable ages, one thing I've learned is you can't tell them to be grateful. Excuse me. You can't tell them the importance of resilience and they just become resilient. They have to have adversity. And when they have that adversity, instead of protecting them from it, supporting them through it, and in some cases like this one, actually creating it for them in a safe environment. And so we knew that Joe was credible, and through Tyler's best friend, we trusted, that it would be a positive experience overall. But honestly, we only knew a little bit about it outside of the videos that we watched and all that stuff. But I follow Joe now on Instagram and see some of the way that he, talks about resilience in adults. But there's this kind of time frame between 8 to 15 that if you can get them in that range and get them, going through things like this, and learning lessons on their own and with peers where the parents aren't involved or aren't around, that it's pretty powerful. And so his whole thing is if you wait past 16, 17, it's almost, not that it's too late, it's just a lot harder.
Definitely a lot harder. And I don't think it's too late. I went through some physical challenges. I put myself through some physical challenges later, but I just want to come back to this for a moment. It's one, cool that you were on board with it, that Gina was on board with it,
yeah,
that Tyler was on board with it. And it's pretty wild. I was doing a little homework looking at it, and like you said, they're carrying logs, they're doing ice plunges early in the morning.
Yeah.
There's one video of like them carrying chains. It looked like they were in a chain gang. And
Yeah.
It's cool to see at a time like today, like now, with kind of so much going on in the world and the internet. There's so much coddling. And I think we're maybe moving
Yeah,
past that into an era of getting tough again. And I
I
think
hope
it's
so.
so powerful that 8 to 12, 8 to 16-year-old time frame. I can't imagine what that would have been like for me as a kid.
Yeah, I don't I so it's interesting, we've gotten to know the parents of Tyler's buddy, and they asked several of he asked several of his friends and parents, I think like a handful, maybe half a dozen. We were the only ones that did it, and who knows the situation, but, I agree, I think the trend is looking a little bit better, but I still think there's, it's almost counterintuitive as a parent, right? You wanna protect your children from hard things because it's the kind of the parental instinct. But if you think about your own life, think about your own adversity and challenges, those are usually the things that, you're most proud of. And so, I was surprised Tyler wanted to do it, to be honest. We gave him the choice, but he had pretty good influence with his best bud. So yeah, I mean, the craziest thing he told me that they did was they did a 1 hour plank on gravel, and every 60, I think it was 64 kids, every kid had to crawl through the bridge of everyone doing a plank until it was completed. So, and that was day one or day two. And, we get tidbits. He's a boy, so we don't get as much communication from him as if it was my daughter. She'd give us everything.
Yeah.
But as we weeks have gone on, we've gotten more and more tidbits, and you just hear kind of the pride that he has for completing it, but also the like, oh man, that was hard. I wanted to come home. So yeah, I think there's something to that. How do you do that in kind of the normal life? I think there's adversity that happens all the time with people and kids, and recognizing that and not coming to their rescue, but supporting them. Yeah, it's tricky. You'll find out someday. It's but learning your own experiences, obviously. um, you're going to have your own ways in which you're going to approach how you raise kids. But I think one of the things is just reading, learning. I really give a lot of credit to my wife. She's a uh, child life background, but child development was her degree. So she's studied human development and child development in particular, but she also reads about it constantly. And every once in a while, she'll put a book on my desk. I'm like, hey, you need to read this one.
Nice.
So yeah,
So she's doing all the hard work and you're just saying, yeah, go for it.
yeah, I mean, it's a team sport,
Yeah.
it's a team sport. But
Yeah.
no, she's amazing. I mean, I think in many cases, if you don't have both parents that would be supportive of that type of approach, or obviously sending them this as an event, but just like that type of parenting, it's difficult. And we have a ton of flaws in our parenting. So hopefully you don't hear this as we've got to figure it out. But I will say that we're going to send our daughter, and I've been telling buddies about it. I told you about it because it was pretty unique.
Very unique, and good on you for letting Taylor go. I think it's
Yeah,
so cool that he went, and the experiences that are really fun, really meaningful, and that we never want to have again. Those are usually the sweet spot, the trifecta of
for
something
sure.
that was forging, character building, but
Yeah.
third degree fun. It was fun after, not necessarily fun during.
Yeah, totally. I personally believe that if you want purpose in life, is you need to take on responsibility. If you take on responsibility, then you'll have purpose. But it doesn't mean you're going to have fun or be happy during all of that. I actually think it's the opposite. That in order to take on responsibility, like parenting or like starting a business or like taking a shift in your career, it's going to be miserable at times. But you'll look back ideally and go, I wouldn't regret that, right? It's like no one ever regrets doing a push-up, right? Do you really enjoy it in the moment? I think at some point you trick your brain to realizing you enjoy it when you're in the moment, even though it does suck. It's because you know the outcome that ultimately can come from that. And that's not just the physical side, it's also just like the pride that you have. And so yeah, I try to live my life that way, but it's hard when you're in the moment, right? And I
Yeah.
think I used to chase happiness, which I've kind of learned is just a fleeting feeling that sometimes you can't explain. Whereas I've gotten a little bit older, it's more about purpose and having responsibility. And when you have those things, then typically you're going to have pride that comes along with it for what you've been able to accomplish, or even the scars that you have, even if you didn't accomplish the goal that you had.
Absolutely. And speaking of career shifts, I feel like that's a perfect segue to talk about a big part of what I wanted to discuss with you today. You were a vice president at two large companies for about 7 years between the two, and you made a bold, intentional decision to step away from that, to shift, to change your life. Could you tell us a little bit about that and
Sure.
what that has been like for you?
Yeah. I mean, bold might be a strong term, but
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, it was, for me, it was a big decision, and for our family, it was a really big decision. Yeah, I worked for actually the same company, which is under 2 different brands. Been with the company for over 20 years. Really my whole professional, career, my whole, I'd say formidable years, all my 20s, all my 30s, and, my early 40s. Great company, learned a ton. It really I mean, I don't regret a day there, but I got to a point where I had been in the same, I'd been in the same job for a while, and I didn't feel like I was growing as much and being challenged as much as I had in the past. And some things happened internally with the organization that really kind of created this time of reflection. I really had a couple months, 3 months of, hey, we're figuring out our kind of how we're moving things around. We have a big job for you, which is really the same job I had done for 7 years. And I spent some time, just not in the day to day grind and really reflecting on how I was feeling about the future. And there's always been a part of me that wanted to run my own business or be entrepreneur. I didn't really have like a actual what it was, but there was always this part of me of like, eventually I want to do something like X. And I was just in a spot where it's like, am I going to regret that I didn't take that risk or that bold action, now? And the answer for me was definitely I'm going to regret it. And I also I figured I'd do it anyways. Like it was going to happen. So what am I waiting for? And this was kind of an opportunity to leave, this wonderful company that I worked for so long, um, on good terms, in the right way, where it was kind of the big shift was happening, and, not very common in the company, like actually very uncommon for someone in my position and my tenure, um, to leave a position like that and kind of the safety or the, security of a high paying job and a big title. But, um, that's not really the most important thing for me. And that's, I think, some of my personal growth of really what I value. And I just, yeah, I realized that I would regret it and I didn't want to have those regrets. And so I had long conversations, obviously, with Gina, and she's super supportive. She's just like, whatever you decide, I'm all in. Like I didn't have that pressure of like the fear of like, oh, what if? I mean, which I think is real. And I think, that actually was one of to me, one of the biggest things in making this choice and decision was I'm being challenged even in ways I didn't anticipate, like that, challenging that security mindset, challenging that, like, oh, okay, fear of the possible scenario, which drove me in the business world, drives me still today to some degree, but it's actually a weakness of mine. So really learning how to manage that kind of fear person on your shoulder of like, hey, um, worst case is possible, but it's not likely. And
Mhm.
if you were looking at this situation objectively, you would absolutely bet on yourself. So I think just kind of battling some insecurities through that was also something I was looking forward to, even though like the push up, like it hasn't been fun moments in it, but now looking out about a year and a half out, like I don't regret it one bit. It's been, one of the best decisions I've met. I wouldn't have met you most likely, I've created some great relationships and learned so much. So yeah, I mean the decision itself, I think I knew deep down was the right thing, and I just needed to really have a pause and reflect um, and not delay on what I knew I wanted to do. Now, what exactly the next step was, I didn't have figured out, and I still don't.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like I was, fulfilled anymore, in that and I wouldn't say environment, but just in the same role over the same time period. I knew what that was gonna look like, and it just wasn't for me.
And I wanna drill into that for a moment. You said that the pause really gave you perspective. It helped you think bigger, maybe I can do something else. Was it the pause that really catalyzed this change, or was there, an event, something that happened? I'm always really curious to dig into, like, what was the actual moment
Yeah.
where you started to think for the very first time, "Wow, I could do something else."
Yeah, in the back of my mind, I always, I have a lot of belief in myself, and I believed and believe that if I put the effort in and I use the skills that I have, I'm very value driven, if I find my tribe or the individuals that I'll be okay. Like I'm not worried. Like I've always had that belief in myself. It comes from my mom. She always believed in me and gave me that kind of extra juice, and then I had to learn how to give that to myself too. But I think to answer your question, I think what the time did was it allowed me to have a real honest assessment, like a real like break in the crazy chaos, and my calendar wasn't full. Go surf a little bit more, and think about what lifestyle I wanted to have moving forward instead of the lifestyle that I had built just through kind of just living. And my 20s was kind of like, I didn't super insecure, just doing my thing, and was motivated on making money and not having to rely on anybody else. And then you build a family, and you start to be successful. And this is you and I've talked about this. This is where like this midlife crisis, it's very common where, and not just men, but particularly men, they get to a place where they've been kind of doing it the way they thought was maybe what they're supposed to do, or what they just kind of did. And then they get kind of secure financially, and then it's like, well, is this it? Like this is this really um, what the next 20 years is going to be about? So I think that time period really was just um, a little bit of truth telling that I had an opportunity to really just sit in it. And who knows? If I didn't have that much time, I think I still would have made the same decision. I think it just wouldn't have, maybe I would have felt a little bit more obligation to kind of stick through it, or because there's moments where I had thought through that prior to that. There have been some big changes in my company where it was like, this might be a window, but I opted in. And my whole thing, because I had big teams. I mean, I used to go around and travel and speak in front of offices and groups, and I would always get the question, or often get the question, are you going to retire here? Is this, you going to be here until whatever? I'd been coming a long time. I was in a big position, and I always answered very honestly. I said, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel in a year from now. I don't know how I'm going to feel in 5 years from now. And up until that point, I felt like it was a win-win, and this was definitely the path I wanted to stay on. And that's a big kudos to the company I work for, because it was really good for me for a long time. But I got to a point where answering that question honestly, it was like, yeah, I don't see this as a win for me as much anymore. I can do the job and do it well, and it's a win for the company, and I can make good money and have stability, whatever that means. But I wasn't happy. I mean, really, I mean, happy. I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't feeling challenged. I wasn't feeling. It was one of two choices for me: either keep doing what I was doing, probably until I was done, or move and take on a different job that would have challenged me, but that would have required a move somewhere I just personally wouldn't uproot and move my family, and I didn't want to be. So like, my career is very important to me, but it's not the most important thing in my life, and that's a kind of a shift that I made several years ago. And so yeah, it's kind of a combination of things. I think that no matter what, this for me, this action was going to happen. It was a blessing that it happened when it did, because I think it really was just like, okay, it's time to get going and living this next phase of your life. And call it a midlife crisis because it's just an easy term to use. I think it's like, I've had a career, and now I don't ever want to stop having a career in some sorts. It's just what that looks like is I look at it very differently of what I want, I want my lifestyle to be. And one of the coolest things is, I traveled a ton for my job. Traveled not every week, but every other week, and I'd be gone 3 or 4 days a week sometimes. And it's a lot of time to be away from your family. I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't the type of person that likes to kind of travel for work, or and I've been to a lot of these places before, and I enjoyed the people and engaging with individuals that I've known for years. But one of the byproducts of me making my relationship with my family, obviously, I don't know, so has improved, but especially my daughter is my youngest. She's kind of like my cat. Like, she's like, you got to earn my love. My son's more like a dog. Like, he's kind of like, um, my relationship with her is so much better just because I'm around, and I'm, I still have stress. I still have challenges and things, but um, that, just me being physically there was an adjustment, certainly, for the family. But overall, it's been great. I'm involved, even if I'm not there. I'm only there a couple hours a day. I'm still there, and that's, I think, one of the lifestyle choices I wanted is like, I just want to be around more. I want to be able to decide where I spend my time, and that's a little bit different than the environment I was used to, where you had obligations you had to fulfill.
I just wanna acknowledge you for a moment in making that choice. We won't call it a midlife crisis, we'll call it a midlife reorient,
Love that.
because I've worked with a lot of vice presidents through the leadership coaching I do, and not one of them has considered doing what you're doing. I think it takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of
Yeah.
being in tune with what's authentic and how you want your life to be, not what other people want. So the fact that you did that, that was one of the first things as soon as we met, I was like, wow, this guy is a badass. I really respect the fact that
No, I
he
appreciate that.
took a step back and said, this is great. This has been perfect. I've really enjoyed my time here. And going forward, I'm not going to spend the next 20 years of my life doing what is the easy, comfortable, normal thing. I'm going to take a step back and reevaluate.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people out there in and this it's not knocking the corporate career. It's fantastic. I mean, the skills that I've learned. There's a lot of people in those roles that are thriving and doing fantastic. And I think if that was me, still me, I would still be there. Um, but one of my mentors, one of the kind of mental constructs that he taught me that I try to use in my life is like a risk analysis, right? So it is risky. It was risky, and especially people that kind of look at it from the outside, it's like, wow, that's a pretty big risk. And it's like, yeah, I guess on one level it's a pretty big risk. But what he taught me was the other question is that, well, there's the risk if you do, and then there's the risk if you don't make that decision. And if you do both equations, then you'll typically have your answer. And for me, it was a riskier decision to not make that choice. So I look at it as it would have been um, bolder to stay in some ways, or riskier to stay. Um, and yeah, I mean, either way, you're going to be subject to the choices and decisions you make. And felt like it was the right one for me. But I don't know how I'm gonna feel in a year. I might feel totally different. So, would tell people that I worked with when I would travel, kind of the younger generation. They would ask me because they're curious about, like, all right, is there a future for me? And I would always tell them, I'd say, I I look at it 1 year at a time. Like, I feel like when I commit to something, I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. Um, but I don't commit to everything. But in my career, I always looked at every year. I said, I look back, did I learn? Did I grow? Did I feel like this was a win for me? Looking forward from what I can see, do I feel like this is a win for me still? Instead of saying, oh, I'm going to be here in 5 years or 10 years. That's a long time. To know how you're going to feel about something in 5 years is a long time. And sure enough, that was the case. Like, a year had passed and some things had changed, and the equation was different for me. And I had to be true to my word and myself of, like, okay, like, are you really gonna make this move if it's not a win for you? And luckily had have a great wife who's a sounding board and encouraged me to make the decision and not kind of labor on. So yeah, but it's been stressful. I mean, it was weird to, as I'm sure you experienced through your own journey, to go from that environment to the environment where it's like, okay, well, what's next?
Yeah.
But that's part of the journey, and that's been, I'd say, looking back, the most growth opportunity I've had in several years. I've grown more in the last 18 months than certainly the previous, and that's what I signed up for.
You talk about growth when you step away from something you've done for so long and you have that identity as the successful businessman, you have the title of vice president for those many years. You now have to ask yourself, okay, who's Eric without all of that?
Yeah,
And I really relate to you on the kind of insecure overachiever thing. It's really easy to not look at any of the stuff inside. If you're just doing great, you're getting good annual reviews, you're moving up the ranks,
yeah,
but it's who am I in the absence of the value I provide to the world? Who am I if I'm not working this job, if I'm not creating this value? That's where it gets really uncomfortable in the best way.
yeah. It can. It's interesting. I mean, when I was in my 20s, um, it was all about my insecurities were driving me. I mean, it really made me very successful at a young age, and I was in sales, and it was a good motivator.
Insecurity is a strong fuel source.
Strong fuel source. And I realized not until later, really, just how kind of menial that was, but it was real for me then. And then fortunately, I had some really good mentors and it's technically not therapy, but I would call it therapy, where I had some real investments done of some belief systems and matured a lot and realized, like, so when I got more into my 40s, I got to a point where I didn't, like, it wasn't ego driven. Like, the title part, honestly, kind of, like, I didn't like it. Like, I really enjoyed a lot of the work, but a lot of the kind of figurehead responsibilities was actually the least favorite part of my job. I enjoyed the one-on-one development and, like, leading my team. Um, Whereas before, when I was younger, like, that's what I sought out. It's like, oh man, imagine if you were in that title or in that job or making that much money. And I mean, I guess it's all relative. um, I got to a point where I just took it's a vehicle to the things that I want to accomplish in my life, and if it's not kind of itching that scratch for me, then it's then I got to make a change. And so, um, but yeah, coming out of it's strange because I've been in it for so long, and so just not having people coming at you at all times, it's very nice, but also it's a little bit like, where am I going to fill my time?
Yeah.
So what I've been working on more recently is just being comfortable with that, and um, learning how, I especially early on in my career, and just this work ethic of like, you're just going to pound the rock, you're going to outwork everybody, served me really well. But as you get older, and I consider myself more wise now, I don't want to work as hard as I did. I shouldn't. I want to work smart. I want to be strategic. It's kind of going from that like chief to the in the chief, or going from the warrior to the chief in kind of the Native American tribe, where it's like I was the warrior for so long, and kind of you migrate into being more of the wise one. And yeah, that's like my vision for myself, is that hopefully that I can be that for my family and the people that I impact. Doesn't mean I can't, be a warrior from time to time, but like that's not my goal anymore. That's not my focus.
I'm gonna start coming up to you and saying, "Oh, wise one."
Please don't.
That's the new nickname.
Please don't. No, I strive for that. But I think like that's everyone goes on that journey to some degree. And my grandfather on my mom's side was that in our in our family, and I never really knew what he did for work. It was just how he interacted with the family, and he had a successful career, but it was just more about how he treated people. And he would just give you a one-liner. He would always make you laugh, but he'd give you a one-liner, and you'd just be like, "Oh, dang, okay, he's playing a game at a different level."
Yeah.
And I think that's like vision for myself, is like, I just, legacy's kind of silly, because ultimately, like, we're all going to be gone, and no one's going to remember this in 50 years or whatever. Um, but the impact, if you can help people on their journey and get past maybe where were going to go without you, then that's something, at least. And for me, that's fulfilling. And so I'm looking at that with my children, and obviously with my friends. And so I think one of the things that helped me the most in this transition is that I didn't have my whole identity tied into where I worked and to that kind of community. I have a lot of friends there, but I had a lot of friends outside of the company. So that support system wasn't my personal support system wasn't relying on that, which I know a lot of people struggle with, and I did early in my career. So
And friendship is something that I wanna talk about. You're a
yeah,
great friend, and I wanna ask if it's always been that way, and I feel like a good lens to look at that question through is you telling us a little bit about Bermuda Club, which
sure,
is the coolest thing I've been a part of in a long time.
cool. Oh, appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I mean, I've grew up as an only child. I mean, I'm technically not. I have a half sister and some stepsisters. My parents divorced when I was 5. Um, so I didn't have kind of if there is a traditional, typical kind of family dynamic. One of the reasons why that's so important to me with Gina is I didn't have that. She had that. I didn't have that. I had a lot of love and parents that wanted me in their lives. So, but I had my own kind of adversity, and that shaped me tremendously. So friends were just kind of a big part. They were kind of like my best, still one of my best friends. It's kind of like my brother growing up. We met when we were actually my son's age, 12, 13, playing soccer, and we're still, and he's coming down to stay at my house tomorrow night, lives up in Orange County. So, um, I think I learned a lot about the importance of having those types of relationships. And I wanted that, and I needed that. And, I think that, just as I got older, college and after college, like it was less about I call them now kind of, you have your buddies and then you have your friends. And like a buddy you can hang out with and just jump right back in and have a blast, but it's typically surface level. And I got a lot of buddies. But my friend group is, those are the ones that I can have conversations with. I can check in, and it's like, it's not surface level. And they can shoot me straight. They can call my bullshit. I can call their bullshit. Can still be surface level and have a blast and all that, but there's a different level of depth. And um, some of those come and go. I mean, that's the thing. Also, one of the things I've learned is that you're gonna have people that ebb and flow. I mean, I moved down here from the Bay Area because I grew up down here, but I was up there for 20 years. Started my family. I have some really close friends here. I didn't know these people 4 years ago, like really close friends. because we just connected on kind of a deeper level. And then when you move away and you're not, even people I used to work with that I really, I can call them and we're right back where we were, but proximity matters. And I think those things just kind of ebb and flow. But I try to surround myself with people that, one, are going to be honest, and align to my values, but also that raise me up, that are smarter than me, that are, they're wise, they have, things to share. And that doesn't mean they're older necessarily. I've met a ton of wise people that are younger than me. And that's one of the cool things about Bermuda Club is it's I've met some really great people there also, which I anticipated to some degree, but it's actually been better than even I anticipated, just the
Yeah.
character of individuals. So I think, there's a lot of science around if you surround yourself with people that are, ambitious and hungry and smart and high character, that, it actually, you pull from that, you pull that energy. I think there's some stat, like if you work 25 feet or closer from a player, you're more likely to be an A player, like in the work context. But for me personally, I only have so much time, so I want to spend it with people that I feel like are going to be along the same lines, improving me, because I want to try to be a positive person in their lives. So, I just think I am a very loyal person, but conditionally, I have conditions around that loyalty, and I think that's healthy. Or I'm not like unconditionally loyal. I've had to put up boundaries with people in my lives that are big figures in my life, because that wasn't a win-win scenario, or I didn't feel like it was healthy on both sides. And that's something that my wife and I talk a lot about, because I think that kind of unconditional loyalty can actually be really a big trap for somebody, both professionally and personally. So anyways, gave you a lot there, but yeah, I mean, Bermuda Club is in its core is a social club. I mean, I think I mentioned that to you before. Like, I really believe like that will be the anchor to our concept, because people need connection, and they need authentic connection, in-person connection. And sometimes that's hard to get at work, and sometimes that's hard to get when you're raising a family, or if you're, new to a community, or if, you have your own office here. I'm sure sometimes you feel a little bit like, dang, I'd like to, have interaction beyond my screen. I mean, I think
Oh,
the
yeah.
world has changed a lot. And, but I think at its core, humans absolutely we need connection, and we need authentic connection, and who we surround ourselves with determine a lot around who we become. And I believe that, wholeheartedly. So.
So for everyone listening, Bermuda Club is a social club, it's a wellness club, it's golf simulators, ice bath, sauna, speakeasy, sports bar,
It's a
co-working,
lot of
little
things.
office. It's amazing.
It's not one thing, yeah.
It's literally what people need. Everyone needs it, I think specifically men. And just yesterday, talking about being in this office and feeling kind of lonely, I was here all day and then I went and met up with Scotty.
Yeah,
And I had this really interesting experience. I've never really had it before, but I spent the whole morning by myself, no coaching calls. Normally, I'm always like at least with people, maybe it's virtually,
yeah.
but I was kind of isolated all day. And then we met up and we were just talking through some stuff, and I like instantly could feel my energy kind of just rising because I was in the presence of another human. And I was like, wow, I
Yeah.
need to get out more.
Well, and a solid human at that,
Yeah.
with Scott. Yeah, I mean, the concept of Bermuda, we didn't intentionally didn't we built it because we were wondering, why did something like this not exist? And certainly there are things that exist that have similar characteristics, but if a co-work and indoor golf club and kind of a fitness, wellness, sauna, health, and then a sports bar had a baby, and it had a kind of a social component to it, like, that's what it is. And so it was really interesting when we were starting the business. It was easier almost to tell people what it wasn't than what it was, because it is unique, and that's one of the most frequent things that we get when people walk through. It's like once they get in there, they get it. They're like, "Oh, I get it. Okay." Um, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, just the learning and this is the side of the business world that I'm really interested in, kind of in my second careers, um, entrepreneurship and starting businesses and investing in businesses versus kind of working in a big corporation. And it's been great. Like, the two co-founders, I didn't know until I got involved, but came from a trusted source. They become good friends, and we're very aligned just in our value system, and they're savvy business guys. So it's like, it's been cool to have a team that's experienced in this realm. But then also, it's been very validating to me to take my skills that I've had and apply it and go, this applies, and adding a ton of value myself, and giving me a lot of confidence, and like, okay, this is definitely the path where I'm being challenged. I feel like I'm adding value, and I'm feeling fulfilled again.
Mhm.
even though it's hard and there's a lot of variables to that. But yeah, it's been great. It's been a fun ride. We'll see where it goes, but I'm happy with the progress we've made so far, and we've had such an unbelievable amount of support. I mean, from the community, people like you and Scott and others that have really helped us. But our whole thing is we want everybody to have a great experience, whether they're a member or not. We just want them to know that this is a community-based business, and yes, we're for profit, but ultimately we're trying to add a ton of value and find a win-win for anybody that we interact with. I think if you can do that, and be consistent, you should see success as long as you have a good service or product.
And I think that's one thing that you guys are absolutely crushing is it's not just a gym, ice bath, sauna, co-working, golf simulator, sports bar place. There's a togetherness and a depth
Yeah.
that is different than if it were just a place where people went to do those things. It's like you always see people coming together, talking, hanging out outside of the club as well. But then one thing that we connected on immediately was your desire for just more of that community, more of that
Yeah.
connection, the ability to have non-surface level conversations with other people. And that's kind of led to the Bermuda Club men's group
Yeah.
that we've been doing together.
Yeah. That's how we met. I guess that's how we met, about how we got to really know each other. Yeah. I mean, we designed the concept. We're three middle-aged guys, parents, that have had successful careers. And a couple ideas that came together, but at its core, we always talked about how in North County, San Diego, and in any community, you have, the kind of these subgroups of great people. And I say guys because our target audience is predominantly men. We have a few women members, but we're very clear that there's a very positive thing here for men at particular ages, that they're men and women, but men in particular at this age rate are struggling with authentic connection. Um, they lose sight, they lose time with friends, or every person's on their own journey. But as statistically, men typically at middle age struggle with keeping or fostering new relationships that aren't work or deal friends. I call them deal friends or real friends. And then it creates loneliness, actually puts a lot of pressure on their partner at home because their emotional support becomes usually their spouse. And that's good, only but to a degree. Like my wife needs outlets outside of me, and I need outlets outside of her that are, emotional and positive. And so we always talked about that with the concept of like, how cool would it be if we were able to bring these kind of friend groups together in a natural environment, and also created the space around how men typically build relationships. And that's, as you know, through side-by-side interaction, right? Like sitting next to each other in the car or in the golf cart, or working out next to each other, or sitting at the bar or sitting in the sauna. I can't tell you, every single time I'm in the sauna, as conversation sparks up, and I usually say, hey, if we hadn't sat in the sauna, we probably wouldn't have talked today. And they're like, absolutely. It's side by side. It's 20 minutes. You don't have your cell phone. It's like literally the best place to build a relationship or just to get to know somebody. I love it. I know you're a sauna guy too,
Yeah.
but it's actually like a little incubator of like, relation connection. When you're out in the workspace, you don't want to interrupt people, but even though it's not a quiet environment. But anyways, our whole thing was, if we could pull this off, that's why I say it's a social club. If we could pull this off, but at the anchor of it though, when we tour people around, is our only requirement to become a member is no assholes. Like that's it. Like, because, this is a pretty affluent area, and you've got all sorts of different people. And I think most people are very well intended, but you got egos that can come through. And we didn't want that. We wanted an environment, and I think we have an environment where it's not stuffy. Like a traditional kind of country club. We don't have a dress code. Come in your backwards hat and your sandals. We don't care. Just don't be an asshole. And if we have to explain that to somebody, they're probably not the right fit. And so I think what that's done is it's really set the tone around what we are and what we aren't culturally. And then our core group of members that started with us really have kind of helped us, I think, just set that framework. And and so that to me makes it an environment where people feel that kind of energy is positive. And so far so good. Yeah, it's just we that was at the core of our whole concept. Was the amenities are great. We're gonna make this space pop. People are gonna feel like, oh, this is a really great place to be in. But if you don't get that culture right, and it's the same in the business, right? Is that you walk? I would because I ran a region. I had dozens of offices that I was responsible for, and I had directors that ran them, and I could walk into an office and just sit for 5 minutes. I could tell you if that, without looking at spreadsheets, could tell you if that office was performing or not, just by the feel, just by the way people interacted with each other or how they greeted people or me that came in, and almost without fail, I would know. And now I already knew the metrics, but um, the culture is almost palpable, right? When you go into an environment, you can kind of feel, is this stuffy environment? Is this an acceptable environment? Is this, kind of an ego-driven environment? And we're pretty intuitive with like authenticity as humans, and so we really are trying to create a space where the egos are checked at the door. We don't give two shits about what you do for work or what your title is. We care about who you are as a person, and and that's kind of also with our partners. So like when we bring in a partner to work with our members, whether it's the barber or whatever, we want that mindset as well. And so that to me is how you build a community. And it's hard. It's hard to build that. You can lose it in an instance. We just had a situation recently where we just kind of had a member who was operating maybe a little anti what our expectations are. And I had a conversation with our GM, like, what do you think? What do and it was really about me supporting him of, hey, if this member isn't living up to our values and our expectations, then you got to hold the line, because if you don't, the signal you send to everybody else, including him, is that we're not backing up what we say. And he did, and it was a great conversation. The person took ownership, and it was just maybe they had a bad day, but like those little moments. And I think with the same with parenting and same with friendships, like if you let that little guy go, then next time you'll probably let the next one go, and then eventually you don't have what you said that you wanted or that you were trying to create. So went on a tangent, but that's the kind of stuff that's I'm super passionate about, because you can't duplicate that. You got to create that, and that starts and ends with, I think, the founders or the core team that you have in any business.
It's really cool that you're describing all of this because I've gotten that vibe, but I haven't been able to articulate exactly what it is. But you could have the same exact layout as Bermuda Club, same amenities, and it could be completely stuffy. It could be country club
Totally,
vibes.
absolutely.
And it's not that at all. And I'm wondering, you've spoken to it a little bit, but has there been any intentional things that you guys have done? And also I'm thinking about the design. Who designed it? Because it is cool. It is objectively cool for a club started by middle-aged men, and I say that as the biggest compliment. Like
Oh yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
guys you
No,
guys nailed it. So tell me just a tiny bit more about that, and then we can shift to
yeah, I
something
mean,
else.
the design, I will say, matters a ton, and not only the design of the space, the flow,
But
but
the art and
also,
stuff.
yeah, and that's really Scott. He's a lawyer by trade, but he's really our creative. I mean, if you look at like the profiles founders, like he is the creative one. Like he looks at a space, and that's all him. Um, and that matters a ton. Like how you feel. I notice it now when I go into places like restaurants. I'm like, oh, they really nailed this, like the vibe of
Yeah.
the physical side of the space. But then your staff impacts that and all that. This is a lot of my background. So, and just like leadership is just what culture is. There's a great book called Culture Code. I think Dan Boyle is the author, and he really objectifies culture. He puts it in, because a lot of people, when they think about culture, it's like this abstract thing, and he really puts it into a very simple definition and process. And his definition is, uh, I'm going to butcher this, but culture is just how a group of people think and act. So you can't if you have a company with tens of thousands of employees, you don't have a company culture. You have micro cultures that equal your company culture. But ultimately, all that is how a group of people think and act. And he walks through how you define your culture and then how you assess your culture. And most companies, people, teams, families, they'll tell you the culture, but it's probably not what it actually is. It's probably more of their ideal culture. So it's actually a really, really good book to go through and assess your stated culture versus your actual culture versus your intended culture. And the leader's role in that is to get as close to ideal culture as possible. But in order to do that, you have to be honest about what you really have. Like, what is your actual culture? What is the actual belief systems that you have with the people that are in here? So um, I think for us, because our customers are in there, I mean, it's really about setting the right expectations onto what we are and what we are on the front end, and then how we interact with them. But I think it says a lot about the community here. We have just a lot of high quality character individuals that are really looking to improve themselves, and that's kind of how we describe this to people is like, this is for people that want to improve themselves and contribute more than they take. And if most people have that mindset in any environment, I think you're going to have a positive vibe, right? You're gonna have a positive experience. But it's different. That's hard, right? I mean, that's why there's so many consultants and books and leaders around culture, because it's easy to say, oh, well, this is what I'm trying to do, but to actually execute that, um, it's challenging, and you can lose it. You can lose it really quickly if you're not monitoring. I feel like that's the same way in a family. If and between my wife and I, if I'm feeling a certain way and I just kind of bury it for a week, and then it's a month, and then it's a quarter, all of a sudden, I have these harbored feelings, and then what happens is it just creates this situation where we're not having healthy dialogue. And usually, if there's not some conflict happening relatively consistently, someone's holding back. So I don't know. I just like having that healthy conflict, having those little conversations like the one I mentioned with our general managers. Like, if you don't address those, then what else aren't you going to address? And so I try to focus on the little things, because if those things don't get focused on, then it turns into a lot bigger issues. It can potentially.
That's been one of the biggest lessons I'm learning in my life, is that if you don't have the little conversations about the things that are bothering you and you try and play it off as, oh, I'm laid back, I'm super chill, I don't need to bring that up. Those things get swept under the rug,
Yeah,
and then they fester and they grow into resentment. And then it comes up down the road as a big thing that could have been easily sorted, handled if it was just a smaller conversation.
totally. Well, that's that risk if you do, risk if you don't, right? It's scary to confront a parent, or to have conflict with your spouse or even your kids. I mean, it's hard to hold your kid accountable, to a situation, because you don't. It's work. I mean, it's not fun, but it's riskier if you don't, right? It's riskier if you let that slide, because then it's harder the next time. And my wife and I've been together for 22 years. We've been married for 17. Hope I got that right. I think it's 16 actually. Just had our anniversary last week, so I should know that. 16. Um, but we worked the kinks out. Like, it was a lot of conflict early, to where we had to decide, is this really going to work? And I think living together after 6 months, not a great strategy when you're 22, but those years, those formidable years where we both grew individually and together, um, we have still have conflict, of course, and we still have our marriage isn't perfect, but I feel so grateful that we worked out a lot of our communication um, early, to where it was like, okay, this is what we expect from each other. It's like, we're gonna speak our minds and do it in a respectful manner. And I'm so grateful for that, because I see that when I see that I have, certainly with friends and relationships where that isn't the case. And it's hard if you're trying to work on that way down the road, because there's so much like history there. So yeah, I that's one of the things I'm most grateful for, is like, and my wife's taught me a ton, has helped me become a better version of myself, and through our relationship. But I think it applies to any relationship, really, is that if you want to have a deeper relationship, you got to risk pissing them off. You got to risk them not being your friend, or not, liking you. I told my kids, I'm like, there's gonna be moments where you don't like me as your parent, or you don't want to be around me. That means that I'm pushing you, and that's okay, as long as and if I screw up, which I do often, I'll apologize. Like, sometimes I'll say something that's, not the right tone or not the right moment. And you gotta, I gotta own that too. But sometimes it's like, no, I'm okay with you being pissed off at me right now, because you got to really reflect on that. And same goes on the flip side too.
In relationships, you have to be willing to hurt the other person's feelings, sometimes consciously when you need to share something that's very
Yeah,
important, sometimes unconsciously. Like you said, you just get the tone wrong, or you're kind of
totally.
sharing something and you don't realize the impact it's going to have. But that is a huge thing I'm working on, because as a recovering people pleaser, like, I hate when people are
Yeah.
upset with me or they're annoyed with me or whatever.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
that's hard.
leaning into that and just being like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is part of it. Like, you might not like me for the next 24
It's
hours.
hard. My wife's an empath, and it's very similar. She's a people pleaser, and it's been her biggest hurdle, and things she's had to really work on is not taking on other people's emotion. And like, and I'm naturally on the opposites track, right? So she's really helped me with compassion and empathy, and like, hey, I know if I'm being an asshole, I'm being an asshole. I tell her, it's like, if you think you're being an asshole, you're probably right where you should be, because of her personality profile. So we've kind of helped each other move to the middle. I mean, she used to be the one, if like, her dinner showed up and it was the wrong. She's like, I don't want to say anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? Now she stands up for herself ultimately, or creates those boundaries. But that's hard. I mean, that's hard. And I've worked with a lot of people that have that personality profile, and it's like, especially when you're managing people and it's like, dude, those people will consciously or even subconsciously take advantage of that because it's a huge skill, but can be a big weakness. And then same for me, like on the flip side of that, where I've had to really learn to be like, okay, let me just seek to understand here before I go in guns a-blazing with my high D personality. So
Yeah, seek to understand. That is such a good mindset. It's something that my girlfriend and I come back to all the time.
yeah. So yeah, and that's kind of been fun with this new journey is meeting new people, meeting guys like you, guys like Scott. Going back to the men's group, we didn't really talk about that, but I've always had a group kind of in my professional career that was beyond surface level, because it was a big part of the company culture, which I value tremendously, is like really getting to know the individual, and then that's good for the business side of that individual. So we would do some group related stuff. We called them different things, but I always saw value in that. But I found that if I didn't do those things, I wasn't intentional about setting them up, that it just didn't happen very, very common naturally. Um, and so the men's group thing, and why I really was adamant about doing that and trying that, the Bermuda Clubs, I just felt like it's a great, perfect environment for it. I mean, you have like-minded individuals that are all kind of at the same place in their professional and personal lives, and how powerful is that to have a group that you can kind of lean on? And so I wanted that for myself, and then but I didn't want to, or didn't feel like I'm the person to run it. So that's where obviously you and Scotty came into play, and I've gotten a lot out of it. I mean, I just feel like I know those guys and you guys a lot better, but also I can go into those monthly meetings and maybe I'm just not feeling whatever, but I can share that and be like, oh, okay, whatever, this is normal. And then it's not a common thing that I find that I would do and most men would do or people would do just on their own. And that's the point of it, right? Is to create an intentional time where we can sit down, not talk about work, put our phones aside, check in. Um, and then usually there's one or two people that have some shit on their plate that we can just talk through. And it's not giving them advice necessarily. It's just like relating to them and hearing them out, and it's not their wife, it's not, it's not their coworkers. It's like, hey, we don't have any skin in the game with you, bud, so let's just talk through it. How can we be here for you? And like, I need that sometimes. It's been great. What do you
Yeah,
think about it? You've been doing this with us now for, I guess it's been 7-8 months.
I think it's incredible. I think bringing it back to where we started the conversation, anything that has a slight threshold, whether it's a slight threshold or a large threshold of discomfort, there's going to be gold on the other side.
Yeah,
And I think something like a men's group where it's you meet once a month, like we're doing, or maybe you meet twice a month, and it's scheduled and you actually have to show up and you actually have to share how you're
yeah,
feeling and be vulnerable, like that is uncomfortable. It'd be so much easier to just not do that.
totally.
And like you said, that's kind of by default what happens. But when you commit to that, there's so much value, both personally and professionally. I would say personal growth is huge. It's a place to come talk about who you want to become,
Yeah,
how you're doing mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, emotionally, I think
yep,
are 5
you got it.
categories.
Yeah, those check-ins are great, just the ranking system that we do, I love that.
And it's just a level of investment in yourself and a depth that you
Yep.
don't get otherwise. And I can say, obviously, I can say this as a shameless plug. If you're listening and you're in North County, San Diego, absolutely sign up for Bermuda Club and come to it. But what I want to ask you is, what are you getting out of being part of the men's group that's a level deeper or a level different than just being a member at Bermuda?
Yeah, I think I'm getting a lot out of it. So it's cheesy to say this, but friendship. I mean, really, like I actually recruited a lot of the guys in the men's group at the club, because I knew some of the guys. I was just like, hey, I got some guys I'm sure would be interested. A couple of them were super nervous about it or hesitant. I think if had I not recruited them, they've told me this, they wouldn't have signed up. And you've seen, their level of interest and like excitement for it. So I think, the friendship piece, but when I say that, I mean, like, I feel like I have a deeper connection with these individuals than if we weren't doing the men's group. But then also for me, just take an inventory once a month on how I'm feeling in those areas is really eye-opening to see kind of the trend line and go, oh wow, okay, like feelings are fleeting. Like I said, this like happiness, but also sadness and like frustration. Like sometimes I can't pinpoint why I'm just feeling down. It just is what it is. Like I can sit here and go, like, why am I feeling like crap? Like it just sometimes you're feeling like crap. Doesn't mean things are falling apart. And gratitude, right? Like I think like every time I'm in there, I have a sense of gratitude coming out. Gratitude not just for the group itself, but gratitude for what I do have in my life and some of the things that I'm not alone in kind of the challenges. And so it's like the ho hum kind of feel sorry for yourself, which creeps in for sure from time to time, being like, all right, everyone's dealing with shit. Like, even though, you see them sitting there, you think it's like, no, dude, everyone's dealing with shit. Your shit's not that bad. You're going to be okay. So I think anything that creates that type of reflection is super powerful. And to do it in a group setting versus like just journaling, which I value too, I don't know how you replicate that really. Can do it one-on-one with a friend, and I do that. I try to do that stuff from time to time. But yeah, I just think it's that intentional, conscious time. Like, okay, I need to show up here for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, and never know where it's going to go. So it's great, and I think you could duplicate it 10 times at 10 different. It's going to go in totally different directions. So it's more about like the expectations are, that we're just in a group of people that have the same goals to improve themselves, and then let's just see where this thing goes. So yeah, a lot. I love it. And I think, as I've told you guys, I think there's more people that would get a lot out of it, but men in particular, they're just a lot more hesitant. I think like to being vulnerable and emotions. So you guys have done a great job of creating a super safe environment where it's like, look, this isn't, we're going to try to make you cry or like you got to tell your deepest, darkest secrets. No, no, no. This is more of like a support group where we get deeper than the normal, typical guy hangout session. And what last time we were talking about AI for like 15 minutes because we just got on a tangent and but most of the time it's about, hey, what's going on? How you doing? What's going on with this and that? And people are dealing with shit. So all of us.
And I think two things came up for me as you were speaking about that. One is just the intentional pause. That's like a microcosm of that larger pause you took
Yeah.
in your career. We need those pauses. We don't normally schedule
Yeah.
them for ourselves. And two, the whole I'm not alone. Journaling is great. I journal all the time.
Yeah.
But when you're journaling, you are alone. You're
Yeah.
not seeing someone else say the exact same thing that you're dealing with and getting that validation and that
Totally.
comfort. That's such a human thing. Just hearing that someone else is going through something either the same or even just similar to you is such a
Totally validated. And in person, right? Like
yeah.
I believe, and the research is pretty clear that technology is only going to create more dependency on our devices, on our phones, and that people are going to be seeking out the benefits of in-person interaction. And so there's a lot you can get done. And I'd say in person. I think being on the phone or being on a Zoom is pretty close to in person. But like the social media desk scrolling and like just the type like so anything that's intentional with in-person interaction that you can really trust. And we talked about this, I think, last session where it's like, it's just tough to trust um, things on a device, right? Where it's like, is this authentic, real communication, or is this now a bot that's just putting this out there, or
Yeah.
this video or that? So I think it's just a little bit more relatable when you're sitting around a group of humans talking about real things and realizing that life isn't as simple as sometimes it gets perceived to be in kind of the external world. And then you're just being people in a room chatting. And I mean, that's like the fire, the fire pit, sitting around the fire pit. There's something innate to that as humans that like we're attracted to. I don't like camping, but I love sitting around a, a campfire. Like that's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things.
Yeah, we're gonna get a campfire and put it in the middle there.
Seriously, that might be a little bit risky, but maybe outside.
Just a couple of guys being dudes, being cavemen, getting back to our roots.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having fun too, but like actually checking in and talking about really what's going on instead of the like, yeah, I'm good. Everything's fine. And it's just, it's uh life gets complicated, just does. And um the more responsibility you have, the more purpose you can gain, but also it comes with stress. And so I think I'm still learning how to manage that and deal with that and have outlets for that and prioritize. I think one of the biggest things that we talk about in the group is the self-sacrificing behavior and putting everybody else first at your own peril. And it's like in the moment, maybe that feels good, but the long-term impacts of that are devastating. It's brutal. And it's like that inside out. Like if you can realize that the better you are physically, emotionally, spiritually, the better the people you're responsible for are going to benefit. So it's like kind of like, I don't know, it's just tough. It's tough when you're in it. And I've been there, and I go in and out of that from time to time. But I do think that there's a lot of people, but in our case, a lot of men that struggle with, okay, I'm the provider. I've got to sacrifice my X, Y, and Z because I'm responsible for this. It's like, well, okay, ask both questions, right? Yeah, you can do that, but how long can you do that for? And is that really serving the bigger picture for you and your family? And those are tough. Those are tough dynamics, and there's no right answer. It's just everyone's on their journey. But I see that. I see a lot. I've been there.
That's a tough one because short term, it's heroic, it's selfless, it's providing, it's adding value. But if you ask yourself, okay, if I keep doing this, what am I gonna look like? How am I gonna show
Yeah,
up in 2 years, 3 years, 10 years?
totally.
Might just be a shell, a husk.
Yeah, I mean that's really where I think that burnout midlife crisis comes from. Is like what the f? Why did I do all this? I'm not happy, and
Yeah.
and then shit just kind of can fall apart. But I do think there's some real pressures and some perceived pressures that, and all people face it. It's not just men, but that we have our dynamics, and we hear, yeah, I just think it comes down to the person's got to make that own choice for themselves, and then hopefully have bold action in certain areas of their life where they just say fuck it and try it a different way
Yeah.
and see if that belief system they've been carrying actually is a good one or not. And that's for me too. It's like there's belief systems I'm still carrying around that don't serve me, but I still do them just because that's what I've been doing for a long time. But
Yeah.
there are others that I've pivoted and been like, holy shit, okay, actually, I can still be wildly successful and not have to be the guy in the office first and last. It's like, interesting. Okay, well, I can remove that from my belief system category, and all of a sudden now learning different things. But you know, and that's stuff we get into, right? We get into some of these things when we're sitting down and chatting. And one of the things I really love about Bermuda Club is it's a wide range of ages too. Like that's one thing I didn't anticipate. We've members that are 25 to like 55, and so like I'm hanging with some of the younger guys, and it's like invigorating. I'm like, all right, I'm learning a lot from these guys, but hopefully, so building friendships. They're at different stages of their lives, right? So they're having their first kid, and some other guys that have kids that are in college, and learning from them and going, oh man, what's that like? And picking up little tidbits of like, yeah, you'll be here pretty soon, and same with career dynamics too, like where I'm at versus where they're. I'm like, oh, I remember being in that same spot. That's been a cool feature too.
Yeah. I'm planting the seed for a future conversation about AI because you're interested in AI. I know you've been diving into it a little bit.
Yeah,
You also really value human connection. So that'll be a different conversation.
yeah, for
We're
sure.
going to start to land the plane here for today. But I think the last place I want to go, we can kind of go two different ways. One is you sharing a little bit more about what's next and knowing that you might not have it figured out. We'll just bake that in because you don't have to have all the answers. I know you're expanding with Bermuda Club, so you could tell us a little bit about that. Or if we don't want to go the what's next option right now, I'd love to ask, what advice would you give your younger self? What have you learned from transitioning from corporate to entrepreneurship?
Well, you
You
gave me two. You choose.
choose your own adventure.
You want me to choose my own adventure?
Yeah. Which one do you feel more excited about?
Um, I mean, I feel excited about the future for sure. I think the future, when I think about that question, it's personal first. Um, and it's just what kind of lifestyle do I want to have moving in the future? I mean, I feel very fortunate. I worked very hard and put myself in a situation where I have options, and I can um I think, ironic part is I've always had options, but my perceived choices there. But to make this and feel a little bit more secure was help me. Um, but I really liked the lifestyle that I'm seeing with kind of entrepreneurship and business ownership, which is a lot of stress certainly, but you get to you have to motivate yourself. You have to hold yourself accountable. You have to be in control of your schedule, and I like that. I mean, that wasn't typically what I've been used to, and I'm a pretty self-motivated guy. So I think for my family and my lifestyle, like I want to live that type of lifestyle indefinitely. Like I want to have challenging things going on in my professional and personal life. But maybe in 20 years, I don't want as many challenges or as many, issues, but I want some level of mental involvement and challenges instead of this like work to a certain point, you retire, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, what am I doing? Like I want there to be a blend. I want it to kind of phase into however I'm feeling in the future. And that's, I feel like, is the path that I'm on. Um, so in the short term, obviously it's probably a little bit more stress and grind and all that, but I enjoy it. It's fun. And I have a great relationship at home where it is a team sport for us. And so Gina will pick up where she needs to pick up, and I'll pick up where I need to pick up at times. But I will answer your other question. Simply, I think if I was talking to my younger self, the one thing I would tell him is that you're going to be okay. Is that, running on fear and um, fear of failure is a trap, and that just a little boost of that, like, hey, everything's going to be fine. It's going to be a home run. You're good. Like, don't enjoy the ride a little bit more than not. And hopefully he'd listen to that advice, because that's exactly what I would tell him. It's going to be all right. But I have to put myself back in that 23-year-old, 22-year-old's mind. And a big part of how I was raised, it was just very much about, proving that I could be that independent, that independent person, and prove that,
Yeah.
people, those that believed in me and all that. So, I just carried those so firmly when I was young.
That's the hardest part too, is because the reason why there is the fear and the insecurity a lot of times is the uncertainty of if it will work
Yeah.
out. So if you knew that it would work out, then of course you could hear from the wise one, and
Yeah.
he could tell you, relax, it's gonna be
Yeah.
okay. Use a little bit more of self-love or
Yeah.
self-confidence than the insecurity. But that's something I'm always thinking about, and I think I've reached kind of escape velocity of being super worried about, am I gonna be successful? Am I gonna make it? I kind of broke through that last year and a
Yeah.
half ago in coaching. And it's something I'm always thinking about, is like, I would give my younger self, the same advice, but would I have believed it at the time? Would I have
Totally.
been able to actually use it, or would I have been like,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
I probably
nice?
wouldn't have listen I wouldn't listen. I mean, being truthful at 22, be like, "Yeah, I'm doing my thing."
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have listened. I was too focused on that. But the irony here is I still tell myself that all the time.
Yeah.
I still have that tendency to, let that kind of fear of the possible worst case scenario pop in, and that's that's what I tell myself is like, "Hey, what's most likely? Most likely is that that's not going to happen. So why don't you play the likely odds, and then if the shitty odds pop up, then you deal with it, instead of laboring mentally over the possible scenario. That's the hardest thing, is trying to kind of control your mind in those scenarios. But yeah, such
Well,
is life.
I feel like that's a perfect place to wrap up with what you mentioned earlier, but we'll kind of come back to, which is everything's probably gonna be okay. From a probability standpoint, whatever job you're in, like, you will find something next if you get laid off. But what you shared in one of the men's group meetings that was so powerful is, if you were to look at yourself completely objectively, would you bet on yourself? Would other
Yeah,
people around you say, "Hey, Eric's gonna be fine if this happens"? And
yeah,
if you can see yourself objectively for a moment, if you're a high achiever, even if you're an average achiever, probably gonna be okay.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember that conversation because one of the guys in our group who's super successful. He's a winner. He's worked his tail off. He's smart. He's started successful businesses. Is rightfully stressing out about some things, and that was my comment on, because I've been there and I will be there again. And that's what I try to do, is say, all right, well, throw your profile, your baseball card in the middle of the room, and everyone reads it, and let's talk about the concern that objective individuals has. Do you feel that person's going to figure it out? And it's like a resounding yes. It's like, well, that's the game that I'm trying to figure out with myself. It's like, I know that objectively, but when it's you, it's harder, right? And I think the one caveat though is you have to know yourself. And I know I'm going to work hard. I know I have good character. Yeah, I'm going to make mistakes and I'll have to overcome them. So those things have to be true, right? Like obviously there's some people that aren't willing to work hard and they
Right.
want things handed to them. And it's like, well,
And
those people, I don't know if that's if, and also the definition of it's what is okay for them.
yeah.
For me, it's that, that I'm gonna have a loving family, or that there's things I can't control. So I don't know, but it's just like that. Ultimately, get your mind under control, because that's just a fool's game, right? It's a fool's gold game to be trying to figure that out. You don't know. So just do the parts you can control and trust that over time, good things will happen. And that's been the story of my life. I mean, I've certainly had adversity and things happen, but overall, if I've stayed the course, it's been a pretty good life. I feel very grateful and fortunate. And a lot of that has to do with having great people around you to remind you of those things.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being one of those people in my life.
Oh man, you too. I'm glad I know you and appreciate you inviting me in.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. And I think last thing I'll say here, and I keep saying last thing, it's character. The more I learn, it seems like character is the most important thing. And I think
Yeah,
kindness and compassion is rolled up into character, but it's if you can work on that and get that dialed, it's like throw you in any situation, no matter what the external world looks like. If your character is solid and you've built it and you've forged it and you've really worked on it, you're going to be okay in any scenario.
100%. That's really what the no asshole thing
Yeah.
means, is like we can't teach that. And yeah, and if you're working on your character and you want to be a better person and you're willing to do that work, then there's a lot of people that'll meet you where you are with that, and are on that same journey. And those are the type of people I want to be around,
Yeah.
because you don't end that game. I don't. That never ends.
It's an infinite game.
100%.
Thanks for coming on the show,
You're
Eric.
welcome.
I appreciate you. You are a great dad, a great friend, a great community leader, a great entrepreneur. I'm super excited to see what's coming next for you, and we'll get you back on in the future to talk about AI.
All right. I don't know if I'm your guy for AI, but I'll come back on. Thanks, buddy.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you, and thanks for everyone tuning in with us today. As always, we love you guys. We'll see you next time.